And welcome to Reliving My Youth. My name is Noel. My guest this week is Blake Lindsley. A very talented actress, is probably best known for two 90s cult classic movies. The first one being Swingers. She was the girl with the cigar at the party talking with Vince Vaughn. She talks about the preparation for the role. She even gave herself a name that wasn't even in the script. Swingers was directed by Doug Liman. His very first movie a couple years prior to Swingers was Getting In. Blake was also in that movie, and she portrayed Katrina, one of the soldiers in Starship Troopers. She talks about her death scene as well as why the movie didn't perform better at the box office. Starship Troopers definitely has developed a big cult following over the years, spawned a bunch of sequels as well. She had a lot of guest starring appearances on television: Criminal Minds, Without a Trace, CSI, Frasier, DS9. We talk about becoming a Klingon on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. She's still working to this day, has a lot of projects in production. She also talks about what she wanted to be before becoming an actress. I really enjoyed my conversation with Blake, and I hope you do as well. So, Blake, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
So, when we arranged this interview, you sent me a picture, made me very jealous of you being on vacation in Indonesia. And I was like, being stuck at work in New York, and you're in an exotic place. So tell me about your trip, because the picture looked amazing. So I'm sure there's a nice story about that whole trip.
Yeah, I became captivated with Sumba Island. I don't know how a friend sent me a video of horses running through crystal clear water, and I said I got to go there because I'm a horse person.
Right.
I love swimming in the ocean. I love obviously beautiful tropical places. So I looked into it, and the video was from a very fancy resort called Nihi Sumba that was so ridiculously overpriced that
Right.
saddened. Um, But once kept looking, I found another couple places on Sumba, and one of them had those horses that you could ride in the water. And this place is called the Sanubari. So my trip was sort of all around doing that, riding horses in water, in beautiful crystal clear turquoise water. So we went to my kids and I went first to Bali for a few nights to the black sand beaches in northwest Bali. Then we flew to Sumba and we rode horses on the beach and in the water. And then we went on a boat all around Komodo National Park.
Oh,
So it was
wow. That's great. And that was your first time in that
yes.
territory?
Yeah, I mean I've been to Thailand. I've been around Asia, but my first
Right.
time to Indonesia. Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. I mean, I imagine, being an actress, you've, filmed in pretty, exotic locations. Where was the most exotic location you've been for work?
For work, I actually haven't shot in too many far-flung places. I did a movie um called The Only One. It started off being called Horse Latitudes, and they changed the name to The Only One, which is a great film. And we shot that in the wine district of France in
Okay.
Provence. So that was a really nice location. We actually stayed on the at the location in a vineyard, um, and had wine every night.
Right, of course.
Um, and then I did a movie called Coastlines with Victor Nunez in a small beach town in Florida. That was kind of fun. We got rained out of our my dancing sequence with um, my co-star who I'm blanking on right now. Um, but uh, it was I just lost you here. The camera
Okay.
go.
Okay. Yeah, I can still see you.
All right, well, I can't see you.
Okay.
Um,
It's probably an improvement anyway. Better
it was
off.
Josh Brolin and I had a whole dance sequence that we didn't get to shoot because we got rained out because they were filming in an open air bar in
Right.
this tiny coastal town in Florida. So those are two ones I'm thinking of.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess when you shoot on location outside, you're kind of at the
Take that
mercy
risk.
of the weather and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So rather than being on a stage and stuff like that. But I have to ask you because I went on your page earlier, and people don't know it's Internet Movie Database. It's one of the best websites out there. Just kind of gives all the credits to actors and people in the business. And for the longest time, I loved your profile picture. It was the corpse from your episode from CSI, and I guess you changed it recently.
Yeah, so I don't know how that happened.
Right.
I might have uploaded that shot to IMDb, but I certainly didn't choose it
Yeah.
as my profile pic. So when I saw it was on there, I was like, "What? Why is that?" I wouldn't have chosen that. And then when I clicked on the pictures, it was the only picture available. So that was why the system automatically picked it. And then I went away from it and came back, and all the pictures were back again. So
Okay.
I don't know. It was one of those computer glitch thingies.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, because it just like it stood out because everyone absolutely has like their headshots and stuff like that,
Yeah,
and then you a picture of being dead. So I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And I was like, I got to make sure I ask you about that.
it
But
was an accident.
yeah, yeah. And you mentioned on your vacation about riding horses on the beach, and I know you're a competitive horseback rider. How did that start?
When I was a kid, my mom wanted us all to find a great hobby. And so we tried various things. I tried gymnastics, I tried ballet, and when I tried horses, that was what stuck. It just clicked. That was my thing.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've been riding horses competitively since I was 8 years old.
Oh wow. And you got your kids involved too?
Just my daughter. My son was a sport and rode in Indonesia. He didn't want to, but I made him.
Right.
And he ended up enjoying it, especially the water part. But my daughter does ride. She leases a pony and she's jumping a little bit too.
That's great. And I know you were in the movie like Horse Attitudes, and I know like obviously when they ask you, oh, can you do something, can you ride a horse or motorcycle? Or it says actors always lie and say, oh yeah, sure, I can do. And then they just, try to learn how much of an advantage was it in any of your movies that you could
Yeah,
ride a
it's
horse?
really strange because I have these two big skills outside of acting. I ride horses and I sing, and I haven't gotten to utilize either of them
Right,
really. There was a movie that I did where we shot a scene of me riding. It didn't end up making it in the movie. That was Betrayal. And then I just did a movie that started off being called Wild Animal, now calling being called Baby Love, where I work around horses. I'm a equine therapist, but I don't
okay.
actually ride one.
Right,
So I'm helping people with like PTSD and various by using handling horses on the ground. Um, so that was a little bit of a benefit, but I initially wasn't even cast in that role. I was cast as one of the survivors, one of the people in the therapy program, and ended up taking over some of the therapist scenes because Irene Bedard had to leave and go to another set when we had a little snafu with the lead actress.
oh wow,
So the horse thing has never really helped me out, and then with singing, I started off as an opera singer, and I've only ever sung in one movie, and I'm trying to remember the name of that one. It was called Mascara, and that's all I do in it. I'm just like a singer in the
Mm,
background of a
right,
club scene. And again, it was a friend who cast me, and she said, "What part do you want?" And I said, "I want to sing. I never get to sing," so that was it.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you're gonna have to, write a screenplay yourself, where you're like a singing horseback rider or something like that, or combine the two.
I hope so. I have a movie coming up called Clara Boone, which is a sort of psychological thriller in the Old West that will shoot in Montana that they're talking about maybe getting me to sit on a horse. We'll see.
Okay. Right. Fingers crossed. Yeah. Yeah. Well, how difficult is it like when you like, go film a movie and having like young kids? And like, is it difficult like leaving them for, a few days, a week, or multiple weeks?
Yeah, so I used to do a lot of theater, but I haven't done a play since my son was about one because that is a really time-consuming thing, and you're gone, you know, 6 nights a week at night, and then matinees both Saturday and Sunday. That's really a tough schedule to be a mom. For movies, I actually haven't done, I've only done one out-of-town shoot since I had my kids, and that was 2 weeks in the south of France. I told you about
Okay.
the only one.
Right.
It's a great movie, and it was surprisingly easy. I set up everything for my husband, and we had a nanny at the time,
Okay.
and I just went and
Yeah.
I mean, there was talk of bringing everybody with me to the south of France. I'm so glad we didn't, though, because I was really able to absorb myself in that set and
Right.
get really close with everybody, and it felt very natural. We were filming, this really close-knit group of friends, and it really felt very
Yeah.
organic
Right.
because we weren't, if I were going off to my kids, if they're mom, it would have
Yeah.
been really difficult. And in the movie itself, my husband and I have left our kids behind with grandma and
Okay.
grandpa. So it
Perfect.
really felt
Yeah.
felt, felt natural and very real. I think if I were shooting, a series regular on a show and was gone 5, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, that would be really tough.
Yeah.
But the way my work schedule has been, it's been just intermittent. So I'm mostly here for them.
Well, that's great. Yeah. You can come home and you find the house completely in shambles, your husband tied up and the kids running around. So
Once in a while,
yeah,
yeah.
right, of course. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Trust me, I know how that feels. Yeah. So what made you decide to get into the business?
So when I was a little kid, I loved singing, and I definitely had a natural talent, a voice. And at a certain point, my mom said to me, if you're serious about being an opera singer, you should really think about taking acting classes because the best opera singers are always the best actors. And I thought that's kind of smart. I was around 12 or 13. So I took a summer musical theater workshop at Crossroads School, which is a nearby prep school. And I just fell in love with the acting part of it. I thought, you know, I was going to be an opera singer, and I was to a certain extent, but the whole idea of becoming a character and scene study and breaking it down, and it was something I'd never even it hadn't occurred to me before. And so that summer I really fell in love with acting and sort of changed my career path. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to be an opera singer or an actress
Right.
or both.
That's great. And I imagine just living in Los Angeles, you didn't have to pick yourself up, go cross country, with like $5 in your name. It was great. You were home. You can just, go and audition as you choose, being home, I'd imagine, right?
Yeah, so it's a lot easier, obviously, to get an agent in New York, LA, Chicago, than it would be in Arizona.
Right.
But I didn't have. My parents were both lawyers. I didn't
Okay.
have a lot of industry connections.
Mm,
Um, so many Hollywood families, the mom's the agent, the dad's the screenwriter, whatever, and your whole circle is that. Mine
right.
wasn't. My parents were heavily involved in the LA attorney scene
Okay. Right.
and politics, Democratic politics.
Okay.
So I really had to kind of forge my own path um, when it came to acting. So yeah, I got my first agent just completely on my own. I got postcards and I mailed them out and got called into Cunningham Escott DePini and they signed me. And yeah, I wish I had more connections. It would have been a lot
Right.
easier. Definitely getting an agent and getting into the Screen Actors Guild when I was still a teenager, I'm sure put me a little bit ahead of the game
Yeah.
compared to other kids who went to college and came out here when they were 22 with
Right.
nothing.
Right. Democratic politics, nothing's going on with that right now, right?
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Yeah, totally. Now, like when you were auditioning, for multiple roles or whatever, were there any particular actresses you saw every time you went to audition? The same couple?
Yeah, there was this one girl, I'm trying to remember. Um, she got a movie role that I was up for, that I tested for. I'm blanking on all these names too early in the morning, having a coffee.
Right.
Um, uh, but she was always one step ahead of me. Let me see if I can find her name. Um, her She was in What the Bleep Do We Know? Uh, Elaine Hendricks.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Hendricks. She was in gosh, the name of that movie. Oh, The Parent Trap.
That's
So
right. Yeah.
The Parent Trap and Jerry Maguire were two movies that if I'd gotten either of those, maybe
Okay.
my career would have been a little different.
Right.
But as we know, she got that one, and Renee Zellweger got Jerry
Jerry
Maguire.
Maguire. Oh wow. Yeah. How far in the process did you get for Jerry Maguire?
So what happened was they had just found her, and I was in for another project, and she actually wanted the director to see my tape before they committed to Renee.
Okay.
So I almost snuck in there, but they still went ahead with Renee. With Parent Trap, I got right down to it between me and her.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah, because that my wife and daughter love that movie, so that they still watch it from time to time. So it would have been a little different with you in it. I can imagine. Huh?
My life would have turned out a little bit differently, probably, but here I am.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I guess your first role movie was Getting In, which was directed by Doug Liman, who went on to direct Swingers and Born Identity and stuff like that. So, but getting that role and getting in, did that help you for Swingers? Did you have to audition for that role then?
So the way it went for getting in, I did audition. I went on tape for the casting director. And then even though I knew Doug, but it was my first movie role opposite Matthew Perry,
Right.
before he was a friend.
Yeah.
And then for Swingers, I did have to audition. I remember it's a funny story actually. I wore a really cute vintage dress, and it was pretty tight. When I got out of the car to go to the audition, it split right down the back.
Oh,
So I still had little time, so I ran into the closest store. I think it was Fred Siegel, kind of an expensive place, and bought the first dress I saw. It was like $300. I was like, I
yeah.
gotta get to this audition.
Right.
And then I was completely rattled, and I walked into the audition and told the story and made them all laugh. So that was good.
Oh, good.
And I was auditioning actually for the role of the girl who plays the Dorothy in the MGM Grand scene.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I read for that one, and then they said, we had this idea of another role. She doesn't have any lines in the script, but it's this kind of frenetic actress at a party, and Vince, is talking to her, and she's so obnoxious that he ends up ripping up her phone number. And I said, I think I can do that. So
Right. Yeah.
they said, can you just improvise with Vince was there? There was a whole room full of people, and
Right.
so I did. I kind of told the story about the car and the dress, and that's what did it.
Well, that's great. Yeah. And then, like in your scene, you have a cigar you're smoking. So that was that the first time you ever smoked a cigar, or
I'm pretty sure it was. At the time, it must have been really a new thing to have girls smoking a
yeah,
cigar. It was a trend that existed for a minute, and they were really on the cutting edge of it. So that was the fun little idea. I think it was John Favreau whose idea
yeah,
it was. Yeah, and that
right,
was my character too, as girl with cigar.
yeah, right. I think your name was like Deidre or something like that, right? I think that's
I called myself
oh,
that in this. I was improvising
oh, okay,
all that stuff, and it made me really nervous going into a shoot, to just have this. You're going to improvise, open-ended
yeah,
things. So when I was at the time I was doing a play up in Northern California, and so I spent a lot of time writing out potential, things I would
yeah,
say. And then I went down for the shoot. It was a night shoot, and I'd never done a night shoot before. I figured if I was called at 6 p.m., I'd probably be done by midnight, right?
right.
No, night
No,
shoot is all night. So I had to be at a dress rehearsal up in Northern California the next day, so I was pretty wrecked. But I did all these scenes that I had written out, and I was done with all my material. And Doug Lyman, came up to me and said, this time that's all fine, but let's try something like just completely different. Action.
yeah.
And what came out of my mouth next is what's in the movie.
Oh
Just
wow,
completely off the top of my head. I told a couple of true stories. I told the story about this kid in kindergarten that I had a crush on named Lee, and he wore Lee jeans.
right.
And then there was another story of a girl in Central Park mistook me for Tina Yothers.
Family ties,
I
yeah,
don't look anything like Tina Yothers,
right.
but it made for a funny story.
Yeah, no, totally. It's a totally memorable scene, and it's yeah, it's really good. Yeah. And that whole movie kind of like I guess had the revival, the swing revival, the swing music and everything like that, and like Big Bad Voodoo Daddy and whatnot. Which lasted, I'd probably say the rest of that decade. And then also just the kind of going around Los Angeles at different places. Did you ever hit up those spots like, the Dresden and like the Derby and any of those places
Yeah,
before?
at the time that was that was the scene, right? And I think it was mostly after doing the movie that it was sort of a cast thing that people would go and
Yeah.
get a drink and, go to those places. So I did a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wasn't big on the swing dancing or anything like that.
Right, yeah. Yeah. And like the movie didn't I don't it was limited release in the theaters and kind of had to pick up with like, you know, home video and like HBO and whatnot. Are you surprised just the legacy of that movie?
At the time, I really was surprised by what a big hit it became. It was acquired by Miramax for, I think it was $1 million. It was a
Right.
huge, huge thing for it to, get that kind of bid. I guess it was at Sundance, I think. Um, and now I would say, it really stands up. It's a good movie.
Mm.
And certainly it propelled, John and Vince
Yeah.
and Doug Liman to amazing heights. Um, but it's all been kind of a slow burn. At the time, if you told me that Jon Favreau was going to be one of the biggest, mega
Yeah.
movie directors, I think I would have been pretty surprised.
Right.
But he certainly earned it. I mean, wow,
Yeah,
he's he's got a
totally.
great legacy. But at the time of the movie, it was really great. So I'm really proud of how it stands up.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably between that and maybe like Shawshank, those are like the two guy movies of that decade. It's just, I mean, it's completely different, but it just, how guys just are drawn to both those movies. And it's just like, I think the legacy, I mean, every time it's on, I'll still watch it and it's fantastic and still holds up to this day.
I mean, I'm actually more surprised that Starship Troopers wasn't a bigger hit.
Yeah.
I that was kind of was a flop for what a big budget it was. Now it's got a cult following,
Yeah, totally.
but it 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 was a big disappointment for me that it
Yeah,
didn't.
and I guess it's a great segue. I love the movie. I think it's fantastic. I watched it a couple weeks ago, and the effects are still great. I mean, it still holds up all all
I think that
the
people
bugs
just
and
didn't
what.
get the humor. It
Yeah,
was missed its mark. The book in itself was very it was took itself very seriously, and
right.
then
The
Ed Neumeier
fascism
kind of
and
flipped it around and made it this really funny satire, and I think people were a little too thick to grasp it. But it was the same kind of humor that was in RoboCop.
absolutely, yeah, exactly. And I think maybe just the fact that we just got off like Independence Day, and that was like massive, and I think Men in
Very
Black.
earnest, right? Not making fun of itself at
No,
all. Very
exactly. Just like mind-numbing fun, and then with Will Smith the same year that Starship Troopers came out, Men in Black. So it was another like alien movie. So I don't know if like I always say you can't have two of the same genre movies come out around the same time, which makes no sense. But it's some truth to that, I guess.
Yeah, I think that it just hit the wrong nerve in people, and it was also such an ostentatiously large budget at the time.
Yeah,
I think it just yeah was the
right.
wrong movie, the wrong time for some reason.
Yeah, unfortunately. Now, was it fun filming it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it was my dream come true. I had been at Yale for 4 years. I just finished. I literally finished my last final and got on the plane to go to set because I didn't even get to go to my graduation. My
Oh
graduation was
wow.
Memorial Day weekend, but I had to be on set in Wyoming. So there I went from college to huge budget movie. We were on location for I think I was there for 2 weeks in Casper, Wyoming, shooting nights in Hell's Half Acre,
Yeah.
freezing cold, running up and down hills with this heavy, uniform on,
Yeah.
and big boots, and um, it was really exciting. It's really great.
Yeah. And I have to ask the shower scene. Now, there was a rumor that the only way you guys would do it is if Paul Verhoeven, director, was nude. Was that true?
No, what
Okay.
happened was, I mean, we all knew it was coming. We'd been
Okay.
working out. We were all like,
Yeah.
it was never. It was always part of our contracts. We signed nudity clauses. It was no question, we were all going to do it.
Yeah.
I think that everyone was a little bit nervous about it, and I think Paul and Jos Vakino thought it would be funny if they dropped Trow at the top when we were about the day we were going to shoot the scene. We were all in our
Yeah.
robes, we'd gotten butt makeup on,
Right.
and they said, "Okay, guys, we're gonna, 1, 2, 3, and we're gonna drop our robes," kind
Yeah.
of thing. And at the same time, Paul and Yost just dropped their pants down. We were like, too
Exactly.
much
Yeah.
information.
Right. Exactly.
some,
Yeah.
some old European guys shriveled up wiener. No, thank you.
Yeah. Right.
Um, so that was all it was. And then at the same time, I think it was Jake and uh, um, Casper both had like, not dildos, but some kind of long
Yeah.
hanging
Dirk
fake
Diggler
penis.
type thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the other joke that happened at the same time.
Right. I guess if that ever happened today, all would have gotten fired. Jay Casper would have been gone. So it's the landscape sure has changed now.
For sure. I mean, the scene probably wouldn't be in the movie anymore, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's true. Yeah. Now, like seeing the like final product with like the visual effects and like CGI, isn't it like you're absolutely amazed the magic of movies?
I mean, at the time, it was really cutting edge stuff.
Right.
So, nowadays, you can't tell what's real and what's not
Yeah.
real. That's just the computer um, stuff is just off the charts. But at the time, it was really cutting edge. Uh, not Tical, Phil Tippett was the.
Yeah, Phil Tippett, yeah.
Um, so we had things like puppets we were shooting with, but a lot of the stuff that's in there was nothing. You were just looking at
Right.
nothing. So that's a real challenge to try to be terrified of a piece of tape
Yeah.
on a camera or just X marks the spot on a tree or something like that. So that's challenging on the actor's end. On the other side, it's yeah, it was remarkable. I was really impressed with the end result of how well they did all those effects.
Yeah. Were you happy with that scene? Or did you want to get kind of like torn to pieces?
I mean, I liked that I went off with, and you didn't see what happened in case they could bring me back for a sequel. But
Exactly.
that didn't work. They did assume I was dead, and I did not
Yeah.
bring me back. But that was another really fun day of shooting. We did that on the Sony lot in LA, and I had my own sound stage. They called it Katrina's Hole.
Right.
And we'd shot the running and falling into the pit from the top out in Hell's Half Acre, but then we shot from inside within the hole on that soundstage at Sony. And while they used a stunt double in Wyoming for falling from the top down, I did it myself on the Sony lot. I didn't have a stunt person for that because of how close up they were.
Right.
So I had to keep, throwing myself down and then getting dragged over and over and over again. I was black and blue.
Cool.
But it was fun.
Yeah. How many takes
Oh,
did you
I
guys
don't
do?
know. Because there are all these different angles and stuff like that.
Right.
But at least 30 or 40 takes.
Oh wow.
Different lenses, different. I don't know if they had more than one camera going on at the
Yeah.
same time,
Right. Yeah. Like I said, the movie still holds up. And there were a couple straight to video uh sequels that I guess, like you said, you could have been in. No one saw you die. You could have been rescued from that cave.
Yeah. I think they thought it was pretty done for me.
Yeah.
I got by that bug. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But that wasn't really the only like sci-fi thing you did. You played a Klingon in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Big Star Trek fan here. It's not like you played a Vulcan where they just put like ears on you. You had to go through the makeup, and how long did that take?
Yeah, that was a lot, and I did it twice actually. I did the episode of Deep Space Nine. I also did a game. I
Right.
did where it was also the same kind of character. So they're like 2 or 3 hours of makeup in the morning to get like that, and then they also have to take it off you at the end of the day because it's
Right.
specialized stuff. You can't really wash it off yourself.
Yeah. So how was it like, during your like your meal time?
Um, Yeah, I don't really remember. I think, I mean, you live with it. It's
Yeah,
one of the magical things about being
right.
an actor, and you go around studios and you see people with
Mm. Yeah,
axes in their heads, and
right. Yeah,
it's magic of movies. You make it work.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah. Was there ever like a time you were, because you guest starred in like so many TV shows that you were close to like getting a series regular on a show?
I auditioned for lots and lots of them, and I did get a pilot that didn't end up getting shot, so I would have been a series regular on that. Um, so I was cast, and then they ended up scrapping it. And yeah, I've been what they call on hold for lots of
Right.
character arcs that were, multiple appearances or series regulars, and just never ended up booking them, sadly.
Okay. How are the sets? Were there any like, because being a guest star on it, like you're kind of like, the new girl in school, so to speak. Were you welcomed by the cast for most of the shows you're on?
It's always a tricky thing going onto a set as a guest star because on the one hand, you're not one of the series regulars. You're not in that in group.
Right.
They all have this established relationship. They've been together for months or years, or many years, as the case may be. Like Frasier, I did the second to last episode. I mean,
Right.
how many years had those
Yeah.
people working together? So I think that when you have more than one episode, you get embraced a little bit more because they're invested in you fitting in and being comfortable. Um, when you're a guest star, you're not an extra, but it's a little bit like being like you're treated a
Yeah.
little bit like you're just here for one. Don't get too comfortable.
Right.
So it depended on the set. Some sets were really, really warm and welcoming, like uh, NYPD Blue. I remember just feeling very
Yeah.
comfortable and warmly welcomed. Whereas then there are other sets where you can tell the leadership on the set maybe isn't that friendly, and the rest of the it ripples. It's a ripple effect,
Right.
right? The cast and the crew take their direction from the top.
You're right.
If the producers or the stars aren't warm and aren't friendly, it trickles down. So I remember I think it was Cold Case, just
Okay.
really unpleasant atmosphere. And I felt like that came from one of the actors.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
yeah, that's too bad. I mean, I've heard some horror stories about certain shows, and it's just like,
Yeah.
ugh, that's not good. But
People used to get away with a lot more. I don't think that people can get away with stuff like that too much anymore.
right.
Bullying and
Yeah.
nasty, mean behavior.
Yeah, exactly. Because everyone's watching, and it's
Videoing, yeah.
exactly. Yeah, we're all journalists now with our phones and stuff like that. Yeah. Do you feel like now because there's so many streaming sites and 9 million different channels that it helps the actors with chances to get more roles, or it just gives it more opportunity for the same actors to get more roles?
That's how I feel. And it's funny. Larry Mantle the other day, or maybe it was even a year ago. I don't remember, but he was saying something on Air Talk, uh, like, oh, there's just so much material out there. If you're an actor and you're out of work, I don't know what you're doing wrong. I was like, Larry, why don't you try it sometime?
Right.
Just because there's more material out there doesn't mean that I'm getting more auditions. I'm certainly
Yeah.
not. Reality TV decimated my
Yeah.
workload. So half the stuff that's being made is reality, and those aren't actors on
Yeah.
there. And then as far as all the cable stuff goes, it's all going direct offer to people who have name recognition and
Yeah.
that sell the tickets or sell the streaming. So I haven't had an increase in work. If anything, I feel like I've worked less and less as I've gotten older.
Right. And I feel like there was a time when you were a movie actor and you were a TV actor. And then like, the movie actors wouldn't dare go to TV. And I feel like that happened probably the late 80s maybe, where it kind of changed. And now with like the limited series and whatnot, you have like amazing like Nicole Kidman or whoever will do a limited series that will take away from, hardworking television actors like yourself getting a role and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that these limited series are treated a little bit more like mini movies,
Movies.
and the quality of the writing and everything is just really good, and that's why you see so many film actresses or actors
Yeah.
doing those, and not as much on episodic TV. So I think that's the difference. I think that
Right. Okay.
the big budget cable or streaming shows allows, a serious actor to kind of take a character on a journey you might otherwise not get in just one movie. So that's the attraction, I would think.
Right.
And also being, maybe getting to shoot from home, not having to travel so much. Whereas, I worked a lot in episodic TV, which is, the 12-hour days for maybe 7 years,
Yeah.
which is great if you want to stay paycheck, but it's a lot of work. And it's also just the quality, it moves so fast. You can't really, the writers have to have a show out every week, and you've got to get it in the can in 10 days.
Right.
And so there isn't as much time and as much money to make it as good quality as some of these limited series can be.
Right. And it's true because you can have like a HBO series will have one season and it takes 20 months for the second season to come out, where like NCIS or whatever, you're doing it every day, and like,
Right.
you have the summer off and that's it, and the season starts, and you're way to go, and you're making 20 episodes or whatever. And it's crazy. Do you kind of feel like the network I mean, you'll always have network television, but like the shows just are like kind of like inferior now to those cable and streaming sites?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah. I mean, I think they pander to sort of the masses, whereas the limited series shows and the cable shows are more for people with a little bit more discerning taste. That's how it feels to me, like a
Right.
Malcolm in the Middle kind of
Right.
show that's on network TV compared to, True Detective. I mean, there's
Yeah.
very different audience for those shows.
Right. It's like a show like Lost that came out like, I guess almost 15 years ago, or whatever, was on network TV, and you figure if that premise was now, that would totally be a streaming show,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
agree.
and shows like that. Yeah.
I mean, something like White Lotus, I think people,
Yeah.
really just get into because it's such good quality, but it's also
Right.
pushing a lot of envelopes.
Hmm.
The second season was wild. I mean, it was,
Right.
you know, actually both of them really took a lot of chances.
Yeah.
So you would never see that kind of thing on network TV. I mean, you would have parents up in arms, all
Yeah.
this nudity and homosexuality and, you know, but
Right.
you
Yeah.
can do that on streaming shows.
Right. What I feel with the streaming shows now, it's like everyone is at a different level at them. Like I could be on episode 4, someone's on episode 6, but you can't have like those discussions anymore, like those cooler
Water
moments,
cooler,
because
yeah,
everyone is like watching different shows, and not like, whereas before it's like, oh, do you remember this episode? With episodic, TV on networks, you were at the mercy of the networks releasing it every week, not like a binge thing, or
right.
a couple episodes here and there. So I feel you kind of missed that, which was always fun.
Yeah, yeah, and you set your DVR, whatever, to
Yeah.
get the latest episode. Yeah, yeah. I've never been a huge TV watcher, so I go to a lot of screenings with my husband of movies, and
Right.
I'm always sort of the last person to know about whatever show is happening. But
Right.
I did watch White Lotus, and I did
Okay.
love both of those both of those seasons.
Yeah, I haven't. That's on my list. 9 million things else, but yeah. Can you watch yourself if you like come across like any of your roles?
Um, yeah, it depends. There are some where I really have a hard time. But my kids haven't really seen me in much. So when we watched Starship Troopers recently, but I want to show them some of my bigger roles. So we'll see if I can handle it or not.
Right.
Um, it's just depends on some of them I like, some of them I really have a hard time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Blake, I really appreciate your time today. Good luck. I hope to see you in more stuff.
Thanks so much, Noel. It's really nice to meet you.
And a special thanks to Blake for joining me today. For more information about Blake, check out our website, blakelindsley.com. And if you have a guest suggestion, hit me up on X, formerly Twitter, at @thefirstnoel19, or like the page Reliving My Youth on Facebook. You can go to iTunes, check out all the past episodes we've had. While you're there, please rate and review the show. Don't have iTunes? Not a problem. Show's on SoundCloud, Spotify, Podbean, Amazon Music, basically wherever you can find a podcast. A new episode comes out soon. Stay safe, everybody. We'll see you then.